Hi everybody, I'm Joe. Thanks for joining me today. I've got a replay here of a match against Goryo's Vengeance. We see the opponent is playing the new card from Shadows over Innistrad, Collective Brutality. It's got 3 modes, and in order to add modes beyond the first, you have to discard a card, which, as you should all know, is pure upside for the Goryo's Vengeance deck, because you're often looking to pitch a Griselbrand into the graveyard to combo with Goryo's Vengeance. We see the opponent has a well-rounded hand with Faithless Looting as a way to discard on turn 1, Collective Brutality as a way to discard if he wants to do that any further. Also, one of the modes gives a creature -2/-2, so removal, some card filtering with Serum Visions, and, well, the shortcoming here is that he's only got 1 land. Serum Visions can help set him up, though, letting him draw a card and see the next 2, so he'll almost certainly hit another land, so this is probably a keep for the opponent. As usual, the opponent has won the die roll. On my side of things, I've got a turn 1 AEther Vial, 3 creatures including Kira to protect my guys. Against an unknown opponent, this is an easy keep every time, probably against a known opponent as well. So opponent's on the play, he has to tell me first, and looks like he went with Faithless Looting. I guess that draws some cards as well, and he immediately hits it 2 lands. Griselbrand goes to the graveyard, and it's possible he doesn't need that mountain. Though if he's going for Through the Breach, he might want the lands. Okay, so at this point I know what I'm playing against. We see the Griselbrand in the graveyard, and having drawn Cursecatcher, I'm going to have a choice between whether to play AEther Vial first or Cursecatcher. It's a tough decision. The opponent did pitch his extra land. Ultimately, I went with Cursecatcher because the opponent can just win next turn if he has the Goryo's Vengeance and a second land in hand. As we see, he does have those things. He draws a tapped land for the turn, and seeing that I have Cursecatcher on the board, it's a good time to probably play the tap land. Should probably play the Serum Visions first, though, just like how I play Silvergill or Spreading Seas usually before I make my land drop, just in case you draw a better land. Okay, we're going to see the opponent cast Serum Visions. He does draw another land. Not sure if he would have played that ahead of the Creeping Tar Pit this turn. Probably not, because he has nothing else to do with his mana this turn. And you want to get the man land onto the battlefield. So it looks like he put a Blackleaf Cliffs and a Sleight of Hand both onto the bottom of the library with Serum Visions. So I have a feeling at this point that the opponent is going to have a 3rd land and Goryo's Vengeance next turn, but there's very little I can do. So I'm going to get the AEther Vial on the board a little bit late. Again, knowing the matchup, Harbinger of the Tides could potentially do something for me. If he reanimates a Griselbrand, I can bounce him and prevent him from gaining 7 life with lifelink on the attack. But this deck is just going to be way too fast for us, I think, this game. And we see it just got a little bit faster with Simian Spirit Guide, if he needs it. He can try the bluff where he casts Goryo's Vengeance and I sack Cursecatcher, and then he exiles the Simian Spirit Guide. Basically just trading the Spirit Guide for the Cursecatcher. Kind of unnecessary, a little bit showy. He decides instead to go with just the fetch land. So can't counter it, not even going to try. Here's Griselbrand. We see the opponent immediately pays 7 life to draw 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like he hit another Griselbrand, another Goryo's Vengeance, a 3rd Goryo's Vengeance. Couple lands, Is It Charm, a nice versatile card. Going to swing with the Griselbrand. I take 7. The opponent goes up 7. And it's been a little bit weird. It was a little bit weird this game, the way the opponent used Griselbrand. Usually, opponents just keep digging with Griselbrand. Like, they would pay 7 to go down to 10, pay 7 to go down to 3, draw 14 cards, and just try to combo me out. It's possible that this opponent is not playing the version with Worldspine Worm and Nourishing Shoal. In fact, we haven't seen any of those cards, so it's almost certain that he doesn't play that style of the Goryo's Vengeance deck. But yeah, he only activated the ability once. He's going to sit comfortably at 17 life. On his end step, he's going to discard a bunch of nice stuff. We see he's got another Griselbrand in there. What else? He's going to keep discarding. Looks like he forgot to exile the Griselbrand, so I just remind him. Aether Vial will go up to 1. I drew a land, which is not fantastic. I'm probably going to play the Reejerey, just because I'm falling pretty far behind. Well, that was a little bit awkward. Maybe I was trying to get the opponent to burn a Lightning Bolt or something on the Cursecatcher, but I probably should have just played the Reejerey first and swung for 2 instead of 1. Alright, opponent draws a land. We see he has this Goryo's Vengeance. If he's just going to reanimate the Griselbrand, and swing again, probably should have just used the draw 7 and extra time last turn. Strange sequencing by the opponent. So, Collective Brutality, and he's going to discard Polluted Delta and a Watery Grave. So he's doing all the modes. Looks like he's going to... sorry, who's he pointing at? Looks like he's going to minus my Merrow Reejerey, drain me for 2, and try to make me discard an instant or sorcery. I didn't have any in my hand, but the Reejerey's going to die. I'm going to get drained for 2, and the opponent gets to see my hand. So, again, pretty good card in this deck. Opponent got to discard unnecessary extra lands. Gonna crack a fetch land, go down to 16, get an island, and go for Goryo's Vengeance. You know, I've got to sack the Cursecatcher because I've got nothing else I can do. He's got the Simian Spirit Guide to pay for it. And you expect it if the opponent runs Goryo's Vengeance out in the face of Cursecatcher. I could have had another Cursecatcher with AEther Vial, which would have been pretty nice. But he even has an extra Goryo's Vengeance. So he's going to swing for 7 here. Gets to draw 7 cards. Sees an Emrakul and another Goryo's Vengeance. I have an empty board. I get to move the AEther Vial up to 2. At this point I'm going to play the Silvergill Adept, revealing Harbinger of the Tides. Play a Cursecatcher, pass the turn. The opponent's got us just pinned up against the wall. Draws another Collective Brutality. Serum Visions. I think he drew that land, but he has 2 Simian Spirit Guides to help out whatever he wants to do this turn. Alright, we're probably going to see Emrakul hit the graveyard and Goryo's Vengeance in response. So is it Charm? Nothing I can really do about that, so he's going to draw 2. Draws another Emrakul just for fun, I guess. Discards one of them. Exiles this first Simian Spirit Guide. Of course, he has a second one to pay for. Cursecatcher. And we're going to see Emrakul. I am going to bounce that guy in response to the Annihilator trigger. I'm going to have to sack 6 things. I choose to sack everything except the AEther Vial. The AEther Vial, able to go up to 3, will allow me to get things on the board. I've got a land already in my hand. Alright, so I play the land, draw a Lord of Atlantis. Going to wait to the opponent's end step to play this Kira. You're going to see with the Collective Brutality in his hand, he's going to be able to pitch another Emrakul, do another Goryo's Vengeance. Of course, I can't do anything about that. So this game, I think we saw 2 Griselbrand reanimations and 2 Emrakul reanimations. It would seem like overkill in most games. I think the opponent might have dragged it out a little longer than he needed to. But we see he's playing a version of Ad Nauseam. Sorry, not Ad Nauseam. Goryo's Vengeance that chooses to go with Emrakul over Nourishing Shoal and Worldspine Morum, finishing with Rurik Thar throwing lands at my face. So never really had a chance in that game, but got to see a lot of the opponent's deck. Snap Keep for me, Cursecatcher, Silvergill, Vapor Snag to bounce any of his big dudes. I guess not Emrakul since he has protection, but can bounce Griselbrand. And 2 Island Walklords, very strong. No counter spells, but definitely Snap Keep in any spot for Merfolk. Let's look quickly at the opponent's hand before he starts drawing cards. He's got 2 lands, Simian Spirit Guide, turn 1, Faithless Looting, and 3 Sleight of Hand. I guess that's a keep. So we're going to probably see the Dark Slick Shores into a Sleight of Hand, I would guess. So he gets to look at the top two, keep one, keeps the Creeping Tar Pit, and puts a Polluted Delta onto the bottom. So pretty poor sleight of hand. We're going to play Island, and having two Island Walk Lords against a really fast opponent, Silvergill is not necessarily going to draw me into anything that I don't already have or that I want in this spot. So push as much damage as we can. Here's a Master going to swing for 2. Can always play the Silvergill next turn if something the opponent does sort of forces our hand. Opponent takes 2, draws an Izzet Charm. Showing the value of Cursecatcher. Izzet Charm could kill my Lord, but Cursecatcher has my back. Opponent plays a Polluted Delta and passes. I draw a second Cursecatcher, which is quite nice. At this point, I might want to go with Silvergill into Cursecatcher. The opponent doesn't have anything in his graveyard. However, they can do some crazy instant speed stuff. For example, imagine that the opponent Izzet Charms with Dark Slick Shores and a Simian Spirit Guide, discards a Grizzlebrand, and then cracks a Polluted Delta for black, exiles another Simian Spirit Guide, and then Goryo's Vengeance on the end step. Some tricky stuff is possible on my turn, so I might want to leave mana up for Vapor Snag, though I feel pretty comfortable in the spot. Did give it some thought. All of that is just to say that it's easy to feel comfortable against a deck like Goryo's Vengeance, only to get completely blown out. The Cursecatcher gives me some cover here. So just like last turn, I'm just going to keep pushing Lords out. And in response, I think the opponent is going to try to Izzet Charm. I think he knows about the Cursecatcher. Maybe he just feels like I might forget, and he's in a terrible spot here, and he's just going to lose if he doesn't try something. But of course, I'm going to sacrifice the Cursecatcher. Chooses to let that get countered rather than exiling the Simian Spirit Guide. Interesting. We'll have to see where that goes. I guess he considers the Simian Spirit Guide necessary, maybe as a blocker, almost. Did I just pass the turn without attacking? I just passed the turn without attacking. Very interesting watching these replays sometimes. Well, we see an Anger of the Gods. That's almost certainly going to get cast here. Opponent takes 2 to do it, though. I've got a Cursecatcher, I got a Dispel, so Dispel is going to back me up now. Play a Silvergill Adept and pass the turn, leaving Dispel up. Haven't seen any real combo action from the opponent. We see another Simian Spirit Guide. Opponent's going to go with Sleight of Hand. I think he just... What did he do? He put Through the Breach onto the bottom and moved Emrakul to his hand. See a Sleight of Hand here. So he keeps Anger of the Gods and moves Polluted Delta to the bottom. Plays Creeping Tar Pit and finally passes the turn. So drew a Harbinger, going to attack with Mutavault, push some damage, and keep Dispel up. Opponent's going to cast Faithless Looting. Doesn't hit a Goryo's Vengeance. Would have been great because he could have discarded Emrakul and then reanimated him. So what is he going to discard? Faithless Looting and a Simian Spirit Guide. Pays 3 mana and puts a Simian Spirit Guide on the board. This game is getting pretty grindy. See, if I had attacked with the Lord, he would be at 6 now instead of 9. Let's see if that gets us... If we would have gotten there any quicker. I'm going to Vapor Snag this Simian Spirit Guide, slow the opponent down and keep pushing damage. I mean, it's a little weird putting the Simian Spirit Guide back in his hand because it gives him extra mana, but he's already got 5 lands. I don't think he's choked on mana. Relic is going to give us another way to keep them off of a win condition, so I'm going to put that out and only attack with the Silvergill. I've got double Dispel at this point. Not even, let's see, not even bothering with the Cursecatcher here. With so much mana, the Cursecatcher has become a little bit unnecessary, and double Dispel is excellent backup. They have Izzet Charm, which can counter a non-creature spell unless I pay 2. But I feel really comfortable leaving 2 mana up with Relic here. The opponent can play out another Simian Spirit Guide, but we've got more creatures than he does. Okay, so he's going to flashback a Faithless Looting. Does draw a Goryo's Vengeance here. Now, seems like the line would be discard Merfolk and something else, respond to his shuffle trigger with Goryo's Vengeance. He discards a Blood Crypt, and he discards a Goryo's Vengeance. Not sure why he didn't go for that there. I guess he sees my mana open. Oh, well, I could respond, of course, to the Goryo's Vengeance by cracking the Relic. So this is why I'm leaving all of this stuff up. Multiple counter spells and Graveyard Hate. Not very much the opponent can do except, play out those Simian Spirit Guides. So we see a Swamp come into play through a fetch land. I'm going to just exile one card on his end step. I'll exile another one during his upkeep. The Simian Spirit Guide, as I mentioned, we have more creatures than he does. A land is nice here. It opens me up a little bit more. I was thinking about possibly bringing in the Harbinger on the end step. So I passed the turn with all of this mana up, but then afterwards well, let's see, no. I guess that happened next turn. I realized that, again, tapping out, even on the opponent's end step, if they have mana up, they can respond at instant speed and reanimate somebody. I feel comfortable deploying the Cursecatcher, again, leaving up 3 mana for Dispel, and mana to crack the Relic if I need to. I'm going to attack with the Silvergill just to get the Spirit Guide off the table. I'm just leaning on the opponent. Remember, if I had remembered to attack with the Lord of Atlantis or Master of the Pearl Trident that turn, he would now be at 2 instead of at 5. Opponent's going to flash back another Faithless Looting. Draws a Grizzlebrand and a Serum Vision. Discards Anger of the Gods. Anger of the Gods, I guess, is weak in this spot against just a Cursecatcher. Mutavault, able to get around sorcery speed removal. Got a Serum Visions. What did he draw? Kind of missed it. Well, hold on. Let's look at the graveyard here. All right. So maybe he drew another Grizzlebrand there. Passing the turn. So yeah, I would have been able to attack for lethal here. Chose whether or not I was deciding whether or not to crack the Relic for an extra card draw at the end of my turn, since Grizzlebrand is there. But again, with 2 mana up, he could cast Goryo's Vengeance at instant speed, reanimate Grizzlebrand. But on the end step, Grizzlebrand wouldn't really do anything since he doesn't have 7 life to pay for anything. So yeah, I don't know. Just I was in a really comfortable spot for most of this game because of my counter spells and the Graveyard Hate. Drew an AEther Vial, not amazing. Should have attacked with the Mutavault there and just left up the double Dispel. I was thinking, as I mentioned, that I can bring in the Harbinger at instant speed, but ultimately decided against it, not wanting to tap out. So we see a Goryo's Vengeance. He's going to go for it. I'm going to try to crack the Relic in response. The opponent, this was tapped, I guess, and he thought that I needed to tap it to activate it. So I said we can back up. I have more than enough hate. And he just says, no, it's fine. And I think he just scooped it up at that point. So an interesting look at another take on the Goryo's Vengeance deck. I've almost exclusively seen the Grishol brand playing Nourishing Shoal and World Spineworm. Merfolk is certainly a strong option, and definitely just destroyed me in the first game. But all of my sideboard hate came into play in a big way in that game. I did forget to attack once, which is sort of inexcusable, and made another weird decision on not attacking with a Mutavault, since I was thinking about flashing in Harbinger of the Tides, but then later thought better of it. So yeah, room for improvement. And let's go ahead and see game 3 here. Okay, opening hands, the opponent is going to be on the play here. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 lands, Collective Brutality as removal, gets to see my hand, gets to discard something if he wants to. Some card selection, Sleight of Hand, Simian Spirit Guide for Mana Acceleration. Not sure if this is a mulligan on the opponent's side. I definitely thought about it on my side. Mutavault is nice since it plays around Anger of the Gods, but it's slow. And 5 lands is probably not going to get me there, so I think I ultimately decided that this was a mulligan. The opponent decides to keep, and I decide to mulligan. At this point, seeing a counterspell, 2 Merfolk, another Mutavault among 3 lands, definitely a keep for me, and I'm going to get to scry. So I liked what I saw on the top. I think actually it was an AEther Vial, which is excellent in combination with counterspells, so I can leave up mana while being able to get creatures onto the table through AEther Vial. Opponent's going to start with Sleight of Hand. So he's going to look at the top 2. I ran to the bathroom at this point. So now he has 2 Collective Brutalities, and he moved another land to the bottom. I'll fast forward through my little bathroom break here. All right, back, and there's that AEther Vial that I scried. I'm going to open with Island into AEther Vial. This was a spot where I could have played Mutavault first, having only 3 drops, but better to leave Negate up, even though the opponent's not presenting a turn 1 sort of reanimation target with something like Faithless Looting, pitching a Grizzlebrand. But I decided to go with Island. It's almost always the right choice in case you draw, an Island Walk Lord on turn 2. Opponent now has Izzet Charm up. He's going to get to loot with that. Drew a Cursecatcher, which is quite nice because I've got AEther Vial on 1 at this point. Play the Mutavault. I don't have any double blue, so no reason not to get this guy out as a potential attacker. Opponent is probably going to go for end step Izzet Charm. And we just want to make sure what modes he's choosing here. He says he's going to draw, I guess the only mode here. There's no creatures for it to deal 2/2, and he's not countering anything. So he's going to draw 2, try to draw 2, and discard 2. But I'm going to counter that with Cursecatcher. I had Negate as an option, but Negate, well, the opponent's tapped out. So we're going to use Cursecatcher since it's a much more narrow effect, and you can't always get value out of it. So best to use it when the opportunity presents itself. So Cursecatcher is going to counter that Izzet Charm. Going to keep the opponent off of his card selection and his discard ability. Well, he drew a Quicksilver Amulet for the turn. This is another interesting approach to the reanimation strategy. It's a 4-drop artifact that lets you pay 4 and tap it to repeatedly put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, unlike Through the Breach, which is a one-time use, Goryo's Vengeance, another one-time use instant spell. This artifact can be reused a bunch of times. So while it's a little bit more expensive, it gets around things like Dispel, which is kind of impressive actually, whereas Through the Breach and Goryo's Vengeance are both instants, so they can get hit by Dispel. I fortunately have a Negate in hand here. With a Simian Spirit Guide, the opponent can push out this amulet early, but I do have the Negate. So I think that kind of stunned the opponent, and I'm going to be able to follow up with some creatures. Drew an Island Walk Lord with an AEther Vial on 2. That's great. Pass the turn to the opponent. He drew an Anger of the Gods. Could choose to go with that this turn. Alternatively, could go with Collective Brutality. Alright, so he's going with Collective Brutality. Either choice was a little bit awkward because if he's just going to try to -2 me, I can bring in a Lord to make the Merrow Reejerey bigger. If he Anger the Gods me, he'd at least hit a Merrow Reejerey, but then I'd follow up with an end step Master, take the AEther Vial up to 3, and swing for a lot next turn. I think this might be the only mode that he's choosing. He doesn't want to discard anything else. So of course, it's a bit of a blowout. Tapping him out this turn, and well, actually not tapping him out. He just doesn't have any more black mana. He can't cast that second Collective Brutality. Would have been nice since he could have finished off the Reejerey with another one, but only 1 black mana available, unfortunately, that turn. So he plays his Team Vents tapped. End step, I brought in the Master of the Pearl Trident. I'm going to tick my AEther Vial up here. It just opens up my options, before I take my draw step. So if I draw a land, I won't be able to play the Merrow Reejerey. Well, let's see. if I drew a land for the turn, I would have been able to cast the Reejerey and untap one of my lands and still attack with Mutavault. That would have been fine. But there's no reason not to take him up, not to take the AEther Vial up here, because if I drew a Silvergill Adept, I could still cast him, reveal the Reejerey with the AEther Vial on 3, untap the Mutavault, draw a card off Silvergill Adept, still bring in the Merrow Reejerey with AEther Vial on 3. One of the only reasons to linger with AEther Vial on 2 is if we have an empty hand and are thinking we might top deck a Silvergill Adept, we wouldn't be able to cast the Silvergill here unless AEther Vial was on 2. So take the AEther Vial up, ensure that we can get Reejerey on the table and push as much damage as possible. Also, I was aware that I was playing around Anger the Gods here. Opponent asks how much it is, and it's 4, 4, and 5, which adds up to 13. He goes down from 17 to 13. And drew a Lightning Bolt, which is an awesome combo with Anger of the Gods here, because he can deal 3 damage to all of my guys. They'll have 3 marked, and then he can finish one off with a Lightning Bolt. Once that Lord leaves, these guys return to being 3/3s, and with 3 marked from the Anger of the Gods, they'll actually get exiled. So he had it, and unfortunately he's at 4 life, so swing him down to 2. And I think that might just about be it here. He's going to Collective Brutality me. Well, no, he gets to gain a little bit of life. He gets to drain me for 2. Pretty weak in this spot, but he gets an extra turn. Maybe he's looking for another Lightning Bolt to deal with the Mutavault. So I'm going to play an island, swing with the Mutavault, keep him ticking down towards 0. Draws a Quicksilver Amulet, but with no mana and no big creatures to put into play, I guess he just shows me that he has it. Top of the deck for him was Serum Visions and Emrakul. Probably wouldn't have gotten there either. So we were able to sort of limp across the finish line with Mutavault there. Very interesting match. A couple mistakes for me in game 2, but apart from that, I think I did decently. Let me know your thoughts on Quicksilver Amulet and Emrakul's place in Goryo's Vengeance deck. If any of you have personal experience piloting the deck, is it too clunky? Seems clunky to me, but it also seems pretty clever to play around Dispel. So that's it. Please share any comments or questions that you have. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.